The day the sky went out is older than any living memory, yet everyone feels it in their bones. Asphalt streets thrummed once with solar heat. Now they shiver beneath centuries of clotted ash that never finishes falling. The elders, if you can call 30-year-olds elders, say that the sun is still up there, patient and enraged, but its warmth is sifted through a ceiling of soot so thick it becomes night even at midday. When the ash first settled, crops withered, fauna fled or died, and every glowing screen went dark for want of power. Humanity faced two options: go blind in a world of eclipse, or kindle a new light. That new light was us. Children born after the first decade of darkness sometimes opened their eyes in cradles of flickering color. Midwives whispered of little ribs pulsing with sea-blue radiance, fingers trailing green sparks, hearts igniting soft amber glows through translucent skin. Plague, many thought. Salvation, others countered. The governors saw them as currency. Before long, laws codified the luminous act, requiring every glowing child to be registered, harvested. Yes, harvested, for civic illumination. A family that birthed a shine baby forfeited rights to keep it. The child was taken to the tower, tended, tutored, and drained like a living lantern until the light dimmed forever. Then came the furnace rooms, and parents learned to hide pregnancies in cellars, praying for ordinary infants. I was unlucky twice, born luminous and born in Ravelon, the largest ash-ringed city-state. My parents tried desertion, but the noonday patrol saw my tiny glow through stitched blankets. They handed me over, receiving a ration ticket for their honesty. Hunger reduces resistance. They kissed me once and walked away silent. I remember none of that, but the record keepers told me the story the day I turned 6 when I entered the rotation. The rotation meant 12 hours a day, standing on a dais at the core of a street pavilion, my body linked to copper filaments that drew out excess photons the way veins drain blood. The nearer veins in my wrists prickled where they tapped me. I'd illuminate the road for miners trudging to the lava vents to scrape for geothermal ore, then sleep under greased blankets to keep the remaining glow from leaking through the dormitory walls. Every 3 months we rotated to a different district, so citizens wouldn't notice a child aging into frailty. You can believe the city governors fed us well. A dying lamp is no good to anyone. We had meat once a week, sweetened algae jelly, vitamin chews, and constant hydration to offset the dehydration that comes with light leaching. But we never saw fruit. We never saw the sky. We never met adults. The tower staff used masks to hide expressions, as though protecting themselves from caring. They called us loomies by day, shut-eyes by night, and they rang chimes whenever a child's wattage fell below spec. A gray-robed custodian would appear, push a stretcher, and ferry the dimmed one away. The bed came back. The child didn't. On my 13th birthday, messenger tubes arrived with instructions to transfer me to city center. Your glow metrics indicate first-class candescence, the card said. That sounded like a promotion, but the other kids whispered that first-class candescence meant being wired directly into the Grand Beacon, the giant tower that blazed atop the governor's palace, so the ruling suites never knew darkness. Nobody wired their return. Self-preservation is easier when you've never known freedom. But I had something new, a little sister. Mira was 7, and just beginning her first rotation. She looked like me, white-hot pulses in her palms, sapphire freckles across her nose. Yet she still believed the staff's promises about education and honorary citizenship. I couldn't let her keep believing if I was about to vanish. So I told her the oldest secret in the dormitory. Loomies have agency over their glow. We were taught that a mission is involuntary, a biological gift that must be harvested for the common good. Yet in rare midnight moments, after drills, I learned to dim on purpose, breathing slowly, drawing brightness inward until my skin sat dull as chalk. A stolen handbook on photonic biology hinted that it wasn't organs, but willpower guiding emissions. I practiced for years, pretending exhaustion so monitors wouldn't notice. The catch: holding the light hurt like fever. Releasing it after holding felt like vomiting sunshine. I'd stagger, drained, sometimes black out. But mastery of that switch meant something bigger than comfort. It meant choice. The evening before my scheduled transfer, snow of ash fell heavier than usual. I sat with Mira under her bunk's curtain and taught her the breathing. She laughed, delighted by the trick, until we heard footsteps. The custodian paused at our curtain and said, "Tomorrow's embarkation has been postponed. City Center requires a larger convoy." A larger convoy meant more first-class children, perhaps half the dormitory. Rumors spun with the ash. The governors were losing control over outlying provinces. They needed more power. I lay awake imagining wires boring into my spine, draining me into spotlights for military checkpoints. Suddenly, dimming felt too small a rebellion. At dawn, we filed to the loading dock. The convoy waited. 3 armored haulers, each with cages welded to the flatbeds. Uniformed handlers clipped electrodes onto our napes. I closed my eyes, pulled light in, and let my skin dull. Roused by the sudden shadow, the handler slapped me. "Don't you dare," he snarled, and cranked the amplitude dial on my collar. Pain speared my neck. The glow leaked back. So much for secrecy. Inside my cage, I saw through bars the soot-white streets where ordinary children kicked ash clumps with hollow, lamp-lit eyes. Citizens lined fences, cheering the convoy, hopeful their ration allowances might rise if we supplied the governors with more energy. Among them, a woman sobbed quietly. Someone's mother, recognizing her stolen child. My pulse thudded, and each thud flashed turquoise through my chest. I imagined turning that color into lightning, burning the collars, the haulers, the governor's smug visors. Impossible, I scolded myself. Light isn't fire. Yet that afternoon, the impossible arrived. Halfway to city center, sirens wailed and the convoy jarred to a halt. Explosions cracked the air, not bright like ancestors' fireworks, but deep thunder that shook ash off rooftops. The cage door burst open. Silhouettes in scrap metal armor climbed aboard, faces smeared black. "Come, lamps," one hissed. "We're the Turners. Today we turn the lights on them." Resistance stories had circulated like fairy tales. The Turners, people said, were a myth. Dissidents who liberated luminous children and used their light to guide migrations to the ungoverned wilds. I never believed them. Yet here they were, slicing our collars with makeshift knives insulated by strips of rubber. Panic made it hard to trust rescue. Handlers fought back, but the Turners threw smoke globes laced with mirrored dust that amplified our internal glows, dazzling the soldiers' night goggles. Freed kids stumbled into the road, radiant and confused. Someone took my hand, an older girl, no mask, freckles shaped like constellations. "I'm Ada," she shouted. "Follow the trail lights." We ran. Ash sprayed from our boots. Some children dimmed in fright, but others shone brighter, illuminating broken storefronts and petrified citizens too scared to intervene. Turner scouts flashed laser-cut reflectors, guiding us to an underground canal system. Once inside, metal doors clanged shut, sealing away the unrest topside. The tunnels smelled of mineral water and moldy paint. Generators hummed, casting faint white bulbs. Real electric bulbs, not fleshlight. Ada noticed my wonder. We use geothermal turbines hacked from an old extraction rig, she explained. Still, it's never enough. Darkness leaks everywhere. We need you. They led 23 of us into a cavernous hall, where hundreds of children and adolescents reclined among blankets, reading books etched on aluminum sheets, pages reflecting gentle blue and violet skin hues. Some nursed infants whose tiny lights pulsed like comets. No collars, no copper filaments, no custodians. A tall man stepped up. His eyes were hidden behind welding goggles, hair singed at the ends. I am Fallow. If you feared us, know that we fear the same thing you do. Extinction. That is why we fight. Governors treat you as bulbs to be screwed in and replaced. We treat you as the sunrise. He gestured at a bank of dusty monitors. Our spies hacked the palace network. The governors planned to plug the grand beacon into an amplifier called the tolling device. It converts your biolight into sonic waves, strong enough to vibrate ash layers overhead, clearing a temporary skylight so their elite balloons can ascend to greener territories. After liftoff, the skylight collapses. The rest of the city stays buried in ash while they escape, but they need more wattage to power the tolling device, hence today's convoy. A murmur rippled across us. So the governors weren't satisfied with our light. They wanted our exodus too, as literal fuel for abandonment. Fallow pointed to a map. We can't break the tolling device from outside, but we can overload it from within. A team must insert a little too much light, too fast, blowing internal coils and probably collapsing a few palace towers. The palace sits on a volcanic vent. Sabotage may trigger an eruption big enough to bury their bunker for good. The mission requires children capable of pulse control. Are there volunteers? Minutes earlier, I'd thought holding light a private trick. Now it had a name: pulse control. I looked at Mira, crouched beside me, eyes wide. If I volunteered, she'd be orphaned again. But if we did nothing, we'd both become tolling fodder eventually. She spoke first. I'm coming too. Ada, Fallow, and 4 other glow children joined us, 12 in total. We spent that night training. Instead of dimming, we learned to charge, drawing ambient photons from one another, braiding them inside our chests. The sensation resembled swallowing boiling honey. Sweat evaporated instantly. Engineers fitted us with ceramic gauntlets, etched with silver runes, to channel excess discharge without burning our skin. They reinforced our clothes with ash-proof fabric, though we all suspected cloth wouldn't stop molten rock if things went wrong. At dawn, we ascended ventilation shafts that opened behind the administrative quarter. The sky looked like scraped charcoal, heavy and low, yet hints of rust-red sunrise flickered where volcanic storms brewed. For once, I didn't curse the darkness. It hit us. We reached the palace perimeter, just as a new convoy arrived. Handlers unaware yesterday's captives were gone. Turner saboteurs launched distraction charges at the east gate. Guards swarmed there, leaving the utility entrance exposed. Mira and I slipped inside, using our palms' subtle glows as flashlights down marble corridors veined with grime. Deep within, we located the tolling device, a cathedral-sized chamber. Its core was a spiraled brass pillar, humming with resonance, surrounded by 12 empty harness spheres sized exactly for luminous children. Cables coiled like serpents from each sphere into the pillar. Above it all hung a winch platform where, I guessed, the governors would stand, safe from overload. One could almost imagine them applauding as our souls became their escape. We switched on our gauntlets. Ada counted. Pulse on my mark. Hold for 6 seconds. Then dump everything. Too early, and it won't overload. Too late, and we fry. Footsteps clanged on metal gantries overhead. Soldiers pointed rifles retrofitted with mirror sight attachments. "Stand down! Return to your cages!" a captain bellowed. No more cages. "Mark!" Ada cried. I inhaled until ribs ached, feeling Mira's smaller glow align with mine. Threads of turquoise and amber and violet wove together, brighter than any street lamp Ravalon ever knew. Heat shimmered, and my gauntlet surged, filaments inside turning cherry red. A gunshot cracked. Fallow, perched near a breaker box, fell, but he yanked a lever as he went down, redirecting palace power into our channel. Sparks danced across catwalks. The brass pillar moaned like a dying whale. "Dump!" I exhaled, forcing everything outward. For an instant, my vision dissolved into pure white, soundless, formless. Then the world snapped back with the roar of 1,000 drums. The tolling device exploded inward. Copper and brass petals curled like dead flowers. Shock waves rippled up the vent pipes. I grabbed Mira, rolled behind a console. Shards of glowing metal rained, sizzling on the floor. Overhead, ceiling plates buckled. Ash clouds poured through gaps, but mixed with something else. Sunlight, the real thing, stabbing gold beams into the chamber, as if heaven fired lances. The blast had punctured the volcanic skylight prematurely. For the first time since I was born, I saw my own shadow cast by an orb more than a meter away. Alarms howled. We scrambled through collapsing corridors. Lava-red cracks snaked across walls as the vent beneath the palace awoke. Turners on comms shouted the extraction route had caved, but there was a service elevator leading to the roof. Ada herded us there. On the roof, we found chaos. Governors in silver breathing suits scrambling for their balloon platform, only to find their ships shredded by falling debris. One spotted us shining, his face contorted with indignation. "This is our Ark," he screamed, as though the world owed him survival. Then a fissure opened under his feet, swallowing him into fire. The ash ceiling overhead peeled, curling in on itself like burnt paper. Through the growing hole, the true sky emerged, blue, impossibly pale and infinite. Sunlight washed us, tingling across pores raised all their lives in darkness. Some children wept, some laughed hysterically. Our bioluminescence faded in the brightness, no longer the brightest thing around, but we didn't mind. We were no longer humanity's lanterns. We were simply human. Ada pointed. A cable ladder dangled from a Turner's airship circling above, painted matte to blend with soot, but now clearly visible against azure. We grasped rungs and climbed. Below, the palace cracked, slow dancing into magma. One last shockwave lifted us, rocking the airship, but the pilot steadied altitude. Inside, Fallow lay bandaged, alive. He removed his goggles, revealing eyes, one brown, one milky from acid burn. "You did it," he said, voice raw. "We all did." The ship banked west, toward the ungoverned frontier. As the sun inched higher, the ash horizon glittered like powdered glass. Yet everywhere the ceiling thinned, warmed by thermals from volcanic vents we triggered. Light poured through patchy holes, touching rooftops, soil, skin, maybe even seeds long buried. Mira curled beside me, already asleep. Small fingers stained sundown orange. I watched her chest rise and fall. Without darkness as a mandate, would we still glow? Maybe, maybe not. But glow or shadow, we'd learned to choose. That evening, we landed in a crater valley where rebel engineers were erecting parabolic mirrors, planning to spread sunlight into still dim regions. Local families emerged from huts fashioned of slagstone, blinking at dusk's lingering gold. They didn't cheer, didn't kneel. They simply opened their doors and laid tables with whatever food they had, inviting us to sit. I accepted a slice of something sweet, dried root glazed in honey. It tasted like a memory I never possessed. Across the valley, Turners unfurled a banner, painted in luminous pigments. Let there be us. Children traced the letters with curious hands, leaving faint light behind. Not enough to blind, exactly enough to guide. Night eventually settled. Even sunlight must bow to rotation. But starlight glittered through a cleansed patch of sky, and for the first time stars outnumbered sparks in any child's skin. We didn't plug ourselves into sockets. Instead, we lit small oil lamps, old, humble, adequate. Our glows, now voluntary, flickered in laughter, dance, conversation. Not a single governor told us when to shine. I lay on a slope of cooling ash beside new friends and looked up. The holes in the sky weren't yet wide enough for full dawn, but they'd grow. Wind would carry soot away. Rain would fall. Seeds would remember they are seeds. Humans would remember they are not batteries, not property, but gardeners of whatever light remains. Somewhere beyond, collapsed towers. Ravalon still smoldered, a lesson carved in melted brass, teaching future rulers what becomes of those who harness children like coal. Meanwhile, in the valley, we began constructing an academy. Rooms with windows, libraries with pages that glowed only when held up to the sun. We planned to teach pulse control as art rather than servitude. We planned gardens. We planned birthdays. Mira stirred, eyes reflecting constellations. "Do you think the sun will stay?" she asked. "Nothing stays," I said, "but everything returns." She smiled and drifted back to sleep, arms wrapped around a lamp gone cold. I watched her breathing, and the faintest blush of light gathered at her lips, like an ember, savoring its own readiness. I neither hushed it nor coaxed it. I simply let it be, glowing just enough for dreams.